Here we are. The new league year has begun. The official portion of the free agent signing period is up and running. Of course, it's been going for a couple days. The illegal tampering period, which is like basically the start of free agency started. All kinds of things are going on. Things are going on even as we speak. Even as I sit here in front of you now, as we're getting ready to do this live stream, Jamal Williams just signed with the New Orleans Saints. 3-year deal. So concerns there with Alvin Kamara, right? We're all worried that is Alvin Kamara going to get in a full season? Is he going to get suspended? I'm guessing that probably seems the most likely outcome there with the way his legal proceedings are going. So anyhow, there's a lot going on. Hope everyone's doing fantastic. Thanks for stopping by. I think there'll be no shortage of things to discuss today. So looking forward to doing that, and not the least of which is one Aaron Rodgers. We'll take a few minutes here and let people gather around. Hope you've been out there in the early best ball rooms like I have. Some interesting draft strategies going on. I've been trying to shake things up a little bit, doing some different things, going a little more receiver heavy early. The NFL is doing, right? I mean, I think that's one of the goals here is to basically, try to invest in the same things the NFL is investing in. I want my teams to reflect what those teams are doing, because it seems like that's where the money is following. Well, at least that's where the money's going from the NFL. Where are they spending their resources? What are they investing in? Well, they're investing in the passing attack. And it looks like the New York Jets are investing in their passing attack. We found out today on the Pat McAfee show that Aaron Rodgers, the one and only, has already decided he will return for the 2023 season, and he will play for the New York Football Jets. How exciting is that, Jets fans? You gotta like that. Basically, the trade, he's expecting to play there. He's not, he went into his darkness retreat, thinking he was 90% sure he was going to retire and walk away from $90 million or $60 million, excuse me, which seemed like probably not the most likely outcome, but apparently it was, until he got out and he heard that the Packers were, kind of on the shy, shopping him around. Like, and I don't know how closely y'all follow this, probably pretty closely. But if not, let me, go back to last weekend. You heard it on the live stream here. We talked about it. And basically, Mark Murphy, the CEO, said, well, if everything goes right, Aaron Rodgers will be out of here, right? I mean, I'm paraphrasing only slightly. Well, apparently this was not lost on Aaron Rodgers, who now seems to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I think Pat McAfee suggested it was a big chip. But anyway, sounds like he's heading to the Jets. Sounds like Nathaniel Hackett was a big reason why he wants to go there. They have a great supporting cast of players. And I think it's pretty good, I think right away, as I'm looking in the current best balls, where are people going? Aaron Rodgers is going as a fairly low end quarterback too, right? I mean, people are not investing heavily in him, and that'll change. Just the enthusiasm and the excitement. So I would make sure, if I'm out there in the best ball rooms, I grabbed a share of Aaron Rodgers today just for that reason, because this looks like a good landing spot. But be careful how far up the ADP you chase him, right? I think there's a lot of really good quarterbacks. I think the top quarterbacks are pretty much locked in. Nobody should be, moving him ahead of that top crowd, right? And so, by that, like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, I'd say Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. I'm not drafting Aaron Rodgers ahead of Trevor Lawrence. Lamar Jackson, maybe we're going to talk about him in a minute. Maybe the uncertainty there keeps you off him a little bit. But right now, Russ, if you look, Aaron Rodgers has been going like in around the 18, 19 range, quarterback 18 or 19. Yep, well, I talked about that, Albert, but we'll talk about it more. And so that's always the fun when people just show up. We open the show with that news as it broke. So replaced by David Montgomery. We'll talk about that. A lot of moves. We'll talk about the Aaron Rodgers and some of the associated pieces there. We'll talk about David Montgomery signing with the Lions, which opened the door for Montgomery or for Jamal Williams to move on. Seemed like that was heading that way anyway. And so, see, I think I'm frozen. Might be frozen. Hmm. Guess not. Maybe it's just my YouTube's frozen. Anyway, so yeah, that opened the door for Jamal Williams to move on, and that's fine. We'll see what that does to DeAndre Swift. I'll talk about that in a moment here as well, kind of letting everyone filter into the room. But the Aaron Rodgers is obviously the big news that's sucking up all the oxygen today. There were other moves, JuJu Smith-Schuster to the Patriots. There have been a few moves over the last couple of days, and we'll kind of highlight all those. We'll talk about the possible trades. A lot of discussion that the Patriots are looking for wide receiver help. Darren Waller was sent to the New York Giants, a little bit to his surprise. So if you have questions, throw them in the chat. Happy to hear them, as always. And we'll kind of scroll through some of these things. Going back to the Aaron Rodgers, though, I think that's the big news of the day. And Garrett Wilson is probably a big reason why he wanted to go there. Alan Lazard has also reached an agreement with that team. So, some of the associated pieces, as Elijah Moore, seems like he'll still be around. Corey Davis, not so sure. And there are some other players that Aaron Rodgers, he's made it clear that, he wasn't demanding that any players follow him there. Or that, so Diana Rossini reported that he had a wish list, right? And so he refuted that today. He really is not a fan of the NFL reporters who talk about him. He thinks none of them know anything. He thinks the people on his inner circle don't tell them anything, or if they do, they're probably not people in his inner circle. And he may be right about all that, but people are always going to talk, and these reporters are always going to have their sources. So whether he likes it, look, if he doesn't like it now, wait till he gets to New York, right? For crying out loud, that media is going to go nuts with him. And like already we saw hints of it with Pat McAfee, kind of riffing on the whole notion that Woody Johnson, a pharmaceutical company owner, and he, the vaccines, all these things. I mean, you're going to get a ton of that kind of stuff. Thoughts on JuJu? Royal Slade wants to know. We will grind down into that one. I will get to all these moves that have come along. Appreciate you coming, Royal. Always enjoy the conversation. But anyway, so Garrett Wilson is already going off. I was looking at the recent best balls that I've been in. He's probably going in the second or third round. On best ball 10s, he's wide receiver 13. If you go to Fantasy Pros, the expert consensus rankings right now, he's wide receiver 10. I mean, does he move up, or has he already hit the ceiling there? I think he's kind of hit the ceiling based on the talent around him. Maybe people will reach a little more with Aaron Rodgers there. Look, Aaron Rodgers still sling the ball, right? But Alan Lazard will also be showing up there. And it is good news for Jamal Williams. Very good news. Maybe we should just start with him. That seems to be the one everyone's interested in. Jamal Williams signed with the New Orleans Saints. I will rehash the start of the show. And 17 touchdowns last year on 262 carries. Alvin Kamara, always a big concern with the legal issues going on. You wonder if he's going to play. His trial is July 31st. The NFL's been waiting around on this. I've mentioned it before. Drew Davenport, always, on point with these things. On Twitter has basically, he's out on Alvin Kamara, right? And I've kind of joined him on that. I'm not drafting him where other people are drafting him. I'd like to get a little clarity. This gives you some clarity, though, right? So Jamal Williams seems like an ideal fit and seems like he'll play a great role, kind of that. Look, they've split it up in the past. We've seen them use the multiple backs, and he seems like he's in a good position to continue to excel. I wonder if it's as good a position as he was in Detroit, or I think David Montgomery's in a pretty good spot. So, again, we'll get to him. Well, let me just finish up on the Rodgers. I guess everyone's sick of Aaron Rodgers, so I'll get past it. But I think on the other side, Garrett Wilson, obviously a good play. I think it's good news for Breece Hall. It makes it hard once he's back for opposing defenses to stack the box and get in his face. Going to open things up a little bit with the passing attack being a little more effective, I'm guessing. Whatever you think of Aaron Rodgers, it wasn't a great season last year. It's a huge upgrade, right? It's definitely a better quarterback situation than they've had for a while. Definitely better than last year. And with some of the weapons that he has, including Lazard, we'll see if Corey Davis sticks around. There's been some talk that he may be part of the trade back to Green Bay. So let's look at the Green Bay side. Jordan Love. Packers are all in on him. It's clear. I mean, they've made it clear. I mean, they're basically pushing Rodgers out the door. And I kind of get why they would do this. They've seen this movie before. They've done it with Brett Favre, the back and forth Willie or Woney. Well, they're just giving him a little shove, Aaron Rodgers off the edge. And he talked about it a little bit today. Didn't sound like his feelings were hurt much. Maybe a little bit. But Jordan Love, we don't know what he is, right? So if you're out there in the best ball rooms, or are you drafting him? Go ahead and throw that in the comments. And kind kind of interested. Is he like maybe an upside play, maybe a third quarterback if you're drafting 3 in best balls right now? How much faith do you have in a system? Look, Matt Flores had a lot of success in Green Bay. Is it all Aaron Rodgers? He had some success before with Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee. He's had success before that in various offenses as an assistant with the Rams and Falcons, working with Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan in that group. So I think it's pretty interesting. Eagles defense, John Bonneville notes, spoke glowingly of Love when they didn't need to. So I'm kind of the mind that maybe I'll make this a high upside play because he's going so late right now. And that'll probably change as the momentum builds, right? That's how this kind of works. And that's going to be the thing with Rodgers is, in the immediacy of a situation, people get all in on these things. So Aaron Rodgers' ADP is going to skyrocket, going to spike. I mean, will it go up to quarterback 1 levels? I don't know. I'm not going to push too hard. If it does, I'll dial back and wait later. But I'm kind of interested. Emil Cadlick reminding me he took Jordan Love in our 2 quarterback mock draft last Saturday, fairly early, and I think we all knew this was coming. So it'll be interesting to see how good he is and what it means for Christian Watson, who I think is still a value going off as a wide receiver 3, kind of in that. I think last I saw he was like at 32 in ADP. And Alan Lazard's gone. We don't know about Robert Tunyon's future. He's an unrestricted free agent. We don't know some of the other pieces that will be there or not. So maybe Romeo Doubs is a late round flyer or a very late round flyer. In this case, I think you can probably get him as a wide receiver 6, somewhere in that range. So good news there. Lamar Jackson also now free to negotiate with clubs, which he had to wait. He doesn't have an agent, so teams they can't have direct contact with the players. So he can now have direct contact as his own agent. You would think if he was his own agent, he could actually talk to teams early, but he can't. So teams can now start talking to him, but will they make offers, right? And, we talked about this one before. The Ravens essentially crowdsourcing their negotiations. Makes perfect sense. They haven't been able to get a deal done with Lamar. Maybe they wanted to say, Lamar, here's a dose of reality. Here's what other people are going to offer. And, and let them, see what the market is and pay him a little more. I do think they want to keep him, and the more this plays out, the more convinced I am of that. The concern for me, and maybe you share in these concerns, are how disgruntled he is. I mean, we don't know that he's gruntled or disgruntled right now. He's not saying much. He did mention he does seem to be a little put off by the reporting. $12 million for the 3 years, $8 million fully guaranteed for Jamal Williams. So that's not bad. Yes, John Bonneville will be hilarious when the Packers draft a wide receiver in the first. Finally, right? Just to rub it in. I would almost like that. So interesting. We'll see what happens with Lamar. I'm kind of interested. Looks like we're rolling now. By the way, I'm Bob Harris. You know me from the footballdiehards.com website. You are here at the Football Diehards YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, the like button, the dislike button, whatever floats your boat there. Go to the Football Diehards website. All of John Lob's latest rookie assessments are up by position. He's going to dig a little deeper on the running backs and wide receivers. That'll be coming out. We have a new article by Tara Roberts on best ball players to avoid. I'm avoiding no one now. I mean, I get it, but I mean, I think this is experiment time. I'm curious if you're out there. How many of you are out there, doing best balls right now? Is anyone diving in yet, Royal? I'm guessing you're pretty active, maybe. So if you are, what are some of the values you're finding? There's a lot of players I'm liking. I'm getting, again, I mentioned I'm going receiver early in a lot of these drafts and waiting on running backs. Well, one that I seem to be hitting a lot is a guy I hit a lot last year. James Conner is available 6th, 7th, 8th round. I feel like if that's if that's my first running back, if I'm loading up on tight ends and wide receivers and maybe grabbing a quarterback before I grab my running backs, damn, I could do worse than that. I mean, in Arizona. So Royal, who are you finding? What are some of the values you're finding in these best balls right now? I mean, there's a lot of them. Receivers tend to be burning fast. Quarterbacks, to me, seem to be going a little earlier, and it makes sense. I think that's been my approach. If you're seeing something different, or if there's anything you're noticing that you're leveraging or trying to take advantage of, love to hear it. And that goes for everyone, by the way. John Bonneville, not a complete degenerate. Yes, you are. Don't kid yourself. I mean, I know you're into the rookies. You're very, you're pretty well versed in all this. I used to be like that. I used to be the guy who wanted to wait to see that, I don't want to draft anyone until they get a helmet on them. I don't care anymore. I don't care when I'm doing early best balls. Royal Slade, running backs are falling, lots of value. That's what I'm seeing. Crazy value running back. Where was Jamal Williams was going, like in the 8th or 9th round? So let's talk a little bit about this David Montgomery, Jamal Williams, and DeAndre Swift situation. Ramondre Stevenson, another one that's going way later. I think it's been, let me go pull this up because I think I was looking at ADPs. I'm going to look at, just over the last month, let's say, from the start of February, right? So not to overplay it, but let's look at Stevenson is going off as running back 16. DeAndre Swift, by the way, running back 15. You might want to stop that, people. I know probably nobody in this room is doing that. Dalvin Cook at 14, Joe Mixon at 13, Najee Harris at 12, Breece Hall. We've discussed this a little bit. Am I a little concerned? Am I a little concerned about Breece Hall? Yes, but not at that running back 11. I'll wait for him, right? He's coming off the ACL. The top backs, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, who has, by the way, requested and been granted permission to seek a trade. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think the Chargers are, owe it to themselves to explore this. The Eckler obviously would like a new contract. I don't know if it'll get it. They don't have to trade him, but see what it's worth, right? Saquon Barkley going as 4 after Jonathan Taylor. Derrick Henry at 5. I got Derrick Henry in just now in an underdog best ball in like late second round. I think that's reasonable. Bijan Robinson is the one that people are going off the hook for, right? Running back 6 right now. Nick Chubb 7, Kenneth Walker 8, Travis Etienne 9, Josh Jacobs 10. We'll talk about the Raiders here in a minute, but I think those are great values and totally that. A player Royal Slade has mentioned, and this is something I've been hearing, a lot of people out there talking about. Who was it? Benjamin Albright, who covers the Broncos pretty closely, a pretty knowledgeable insider, mentioned this today. The player that Royal Slade mentioned, Tim Patrick, says Royal Slade is free, and the talk in Denver makes him wonder. And that was Benjamin Albright's thing. He said, if you play dynasty fantasy football, go out and get a hold of Tim Patrick. Well, same in best ball. Tim Patrick's a great, kind of red zone threat, even when all the pieces were in place. Let's say we take Jerry Jeudy or Courtland Sutton out of the equation. Those are players being talked about as possible trades, possibly to New England, who signed JuJu Smith-Schuster. And Royal wanted to talk about that. I don't know if that one moves the needle much for me. Where do you guys feel about that? And by the way, Tim Patrick does move the needle. I love free square players, and you will hear this as we go through and head towards the summer. Always looking for free square players that are essentially you're not, like anyone outside like the 12th round is basically a free square player. You're taking a shot. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't damage your high end, and you might get something out of him. And I think Tim Patrick is definitely one of those players you'll get for nothing, right? If I check his current ADP, I wonder, is he even on the Best Ball 10's ADP? Let me just look at that. Patrick. Receiver 91, going after Rashee Rice, the undrafted as of now rookie. After Greg Dortch recently re-signed with Arizona, so he'll be back. We don't know who his quarterback is. Devontae Parker is a wide receiver 92 for New England. Just joined. Let's get into that New England receiving core, right? Jakobi Meyers gone to Las Vegas, which we will talk about them in a moment. So JuJu Smith-Schuster comes in, gets 3 years, $30+ million. They've got Devontae Parker and not a whole lot else, right? Tyquan Thornton, I guess, is a player we'll be interested in. And that's the key here. I think JuJu, Royal Slade said it, JuJu will be fine if they get a wide receiver 1. I don't think Devontae Parker is that. Look, Bill O'Brien's there. So there was some talk of trading for DeAndre Hopkins, or Bill O'Brien, or at least Bill Belichick was interested. I don't know that DeAndre Hopkins is a Bill O'Brien fan, right? This is your offensive coordinator. That one might be out. But there was also talk of Jerry Jeudy being someone Bill Belichick's interested in. Odell Beckham has been mentioned. So I think if they get one of those players like that, it could work in JuJu's favor. work him in the slot. You'll have Parker on the outside, Thornton a great speed threat, and whoever they bring in, I'm guessing, will be able to do that. Whether it's Jeudy, I don't know, Courtland, Sutton, at least capable of doing the deep routes. So I think it depends on who they bring in. John Bonneville, treat the Pats wide receivers the same as you did last year. If you want to take a flyer on one in the last round, go ahead. But otherwise pass. And Royal Slate says still a run first team, which brings us back to why is Ramondre Stevenson so cheap? Damian Harris is an unrestricted free agent, people. Don't know if he'll be back. Also kind of slow rolling on these running backs getting re-signed. Miami has retained all of their running backs. You thought that might be an opportunity for one of these free agents to land somewhere and excel. A Rashad Penny going to Philadelphia. I think that was a spot we all thought, wow, this is going to be a prime landing spot. Is it a prime landing spot with Rashad Penny there in Philadelphia? Is it good news for Kenneth Gainwell? I kind of think it is. We'll see. I mean, Penny has been really good. He's had a hard time staying on the field. But yes, I think New England will be a run-first team with Bill O'Brien running the show, Mac Jones. I mean, it makes perfect sense. If that's the case, Ramondre Stevenson, if we're getting him at a discount, I'm all about that. And I have been getting some shares of him. And it is crazy. I mean, running back 16 to me, I mean, again, looking at the list of players going ahead of him, there's some guys that I don't trust as much, right? Just going through it. I mean, DeAndre Swift is the one that stands out. Let's dig into that. So John Bonneville mentions that Jamal Williams was running back 15 last year. I think that is not incorrect. Let me just go double check that. 17 touchdowns and 1,000 yards, had 262 carries. If he's in New Orleans and Alvin Kamara is suspended, let's say it's 6 games. That's going to be a pretty good look for Jamal Williams. I'm just going to double check where he finished here because I think that sounds about right to me. Jamal Williams actually finished the season as running back 7. 262 carries, 1,066 yards. The 17 TDs did it for him, right? I mean, Barry Sanders says that's a lot of TDs. So there you have it. So that'll be interesting, guys. I can't even remember a team retaining their entire running back room for all being free agents. I think that's weird for Miami, right? I mean, is this just an indication that they're going to continue the same thing? Will they maybe draft somebody and add to it? Raheem Mostert, a little older, but doesn't have a lot of mileage on him, right? I mean, he's over 30, but I think he only has 450-ish career carries. Hell, that's like a season in 3 games for Derrick Henry. So interesting. Dallas did release Ezekiel Elliott. Michael Sergianeri wants to know, and yes, they did, and maybe Tampa Bay has been mentioned in connection with him. That'll be something to watch. Boofy wants to know if I like Aaron Rodgers in the 8th round of a 10-team Superflex. Superflex, probably yes. I think that's probably a good value there. Would love having him as my quarterback. I'd take him as my quarterback 1 in the Superflex or 2 if you're waiting around. But 8th round sounds about right in the 10-team. Going back though, so I'm guessing if I guess the only uncertainty for Jamal Williams is whether there's actually going to be Alvin Kamara or not. I think if Kamara is there, it's fair to say he takes a secondary role. But that brings us to David Montgomery, who shows up in Detroit, right? Who have seen him run. Obviously, they wanted him for a reason. He now gets to face his old team twice a year. Last year wasn't his best year, but he was beat up a little bit last year, but he generally has remained healthy, right? He's not like a injury-prone player, not a guy that, you find is spends a lot of time beat up or et cetera. So you look at that landing spot, that's a pretty good landing spot for him. He had a 1,500-yard season in 2020. That included 1,500 scrimmage yards, so he can receive. He is a capable enough receiver. But expecting him to come in and get a primary role, get something like what Jamal Williams got last year, that 262 carries, because clearly they don't trust DeAndre Swift. So Swift plays that secondary role. The fact that he's going running back 15 in these early best balls, they could probably need to be dialing back, and that opens the door for Khalil Herbert in Chicago to come on a little bit, right? The coaching staff last year, there was a lot of buzz in June, July that they really felt he was a good fit. Now we'll see, and we'll also see if they draft somebody. I know Bears fans have visions of Bijan Robinson. Everyone has visions of Bijan Robinson. Cowboys fans, Chargers fans, every fan, Eagles fans. I don't know where he's going to last. Where do you guys, I think I've asked this before. Does he make it out of the top 10, Bijan Robinson? Don't see a lot of running backs go there. John noticed there was a lot of speculation the Dolphins were on Dalvin Cook, but they got their entire running room, and that's totally true. Also, Alexander Mattison is out there and available. So we'll see if I don't see a lot of bidding on these running backs. And, again, maybe it's just Mike McDaniels going with what he knows. I mean, they're sticking with Tua. They're sticking with those running backs. They're moving on from Mike Gesicki, but we'll see where he ends up. The tight end market, not too exciting. Hayden Hurst gets a landing spot in Carolina today with good money. I think it was $13 million for the year, so they're paying him. We'll see who their quarterback is. Might be Andy Dalton. He was signed by the team yesterday. Still think he's most likely a bridge quarterback to get them through until the rookie works, and maybe the rookie comes in and starts right away. We don't know who the rookie is yet. And the Raiders have been busy, right? Thought Madison would land in Denver or New Orleans, and not sure now. So that, Samaje Perine went to the Denver Broncos. So how does that play out for the associated pieces? What does that say about Javonte Williams? I know Matthew Berry did his piece where he was talking to everybody at the Combine, and the thought was maybe they go after a Kareem Hunt level player. Is Samaje Perine that? Did he demonstrate last year when he was way more efficient than Joe Mixon, that maybe he can be that lead back? Does he do enough well to be a lead back if Javonte Williams can't go? Because the theory was, if the Broncos, what Barry basically reported is the Broncos have no idea where Javonte Williams is going to be week 1, right, in terms of health. It was a serious knee injury, ACL, LCL, both. The rumors are that he is in worse shape than they are letting on, which would make perfect sense. Gary Davenport in the house. Love to see that. Saying Perine is a sneaky good Williams insurance. And so that's the thing. The talk was that, if they go out for a frontline run kind of play in free agency, and I guess is Perine that? I think he might be based on last year. So we'll see when Javonte Williams gets back. By the way, we're drafting Javonte Williams probably too early, I feel, right? Like Breece Hall, I'm a little more comfortable with, and maybe that's just me, just because he looked so damn good. But I just want to say, what are we looking at the ADP right now on Javonte Williams? Running back 18, going ahead of Aaron Jones, Cam Akers, going ahead of Kamara. That's fine with that. Jahmyr Gibbs going in that range. J.K. Dobbins, Dameon Pierce, nobody likes. James Conner, running back 25. Isaiah Pacheco, 28. Miles Sanders, maybe the landing spot will change that. 29 and 30 are Montgomery and Sanders. I think Montgomery will rise up with his landing spot, so it makes perfect sense if he does, because I think it's a frontline role. But again, we're drafting Swift too high. I think we're drafting Javonte Williams too high. The positional value for Joe Herbert says Bijan gets out of the top 10, but some GMs lose their mind on draft day. That is true. Also, so John brings up the point where I'm at with guys like Javonte Williams and even Breece Hall would agree, although I'm going to admit I have drafted him earlier than I thought I would because, man, he looks so damn good. Anyway, the J.K. Dobbins, and go ahead and throw Gus Edwards into that mix too. Guys that were coming off ACLs. I want to say Gus Edwards was a little cleaner. One of the two was cleaner, one wasn't. But Miles Sanders, they're going to the Panthers of Carolina. So there we have that. That's a pretty good landing spot for him, I think, right? They're going to come in with a young quarterback or Andy Dalton. Frank Reich's shown the ability to use running backs in the past with Jonathan Taylor. So that's pretty good news there. John Bonneville's still all in on Breece Hall. So Miles Sanders. So we now have basically the top backs, the big name backs in free agency, both off the board. And David Montgomery and Miles Sanders. Hello, Andrea. Thanks for coming. Yeah, I think people are going to like this. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that. I think people are going to like this Miles Sanders thing. I like both those. I like both Montgomery and Sanders. I like both those landing spots. I think those are both pretty damn good. I'm kind of enthusiastic about this now. I'm getting increasingly enthusiastic. So the Panthers today have, in the last 2 days, Andy Dalton, they've got their bridge quarterback, a guy that can carry them if need be. I think they'll push the rookie in, whoever it is. I mean, you didn't trade up and make that pick to to get somebody who needs to sit around for a long time. But let's say they do. They got a bridge quarterback, a serviceable guy who can certainly hand off the football. I think they retained a key offensive line piece. They've added Hayden Hurst to the mix. They're making some moves. They'll need a wide receiver one. That's okay. They'll figure it out. Interesting. Miles Sanders. I'm kind of excited about that. So I mentioned 28 and 29 and current ADP. Expect those prices to rise accordingly based on the roles for David Montgomery and Miles Sanders. I mean, I think these are good. Like for Montgomery in particular, I mean, Detroit's offensive line is powerful, right? I mean, this is a good deal, man. I like the landing spots. We don't always see that. I think a lot of times Panthers trading for D-Hop, then they win the NFC South with C.J. Stroud at quarterback. Interesting. Entirely possible. NFC South, I'm told, there aren't a lot of great quarterbacks. Derek Carr just got angry somewhere. Derek Carr is shaking his fist at me. So that's kind of I think a lot of times we get excited about free agency or the draft, and we think of all the possible landing spots for the key pieces, maybe more the draft than free agency, but they end up going to a place where why did they go there? That's not where we wanted them. And in this case, I think these are both pretty good landing spots, unless you're into DeAndre Swift on the dynasty end of things. And in that case, you're probably not too happy about it. Clearly, the Lions do not have a lot of faith. And we'll see who shows up in Dallas to work alongside Tony Pollard with Ezekiel Elliott release, because we know from a year ago, I mean, they basically, I know Skip Pete, the running backs coach who said this, is gone, but I think this was more organizational than, a position coach making this call, that Tony Pollard, they like him in for about 30 snaps. So somebody else is going to be there. We'll see who they land, and we'll see if Ezekiel Elliott lands maybe in Tampa Bay. People drafting Rachaad White, hope not, but Rachaad White's been a value. As Royal Slade mentioned earlier, running backs are crazy value, right? There are running backs going way late in these current best balls. I'll just run down. Rachaad White, running back 31. Leonard Fournette, we'll see where he lands, is 32. A.J. Dillon, 33. Ezekiel Elliott, 30. Remember when we all loved Brian Robinson Jr. in Washington? He's 35. Antonio Gibson, 36. Khalil Herbert, 37. Look for that to change. Jamal Williams was going off as running back, 38. Look for that to change. I mean, there's some value at this position. There are some pieces out there that are going to have some value. So we'll see where the players like Deontay Foreman and Damian Harris, some of the free agents still available, Devin Singletary land. Throw me out some ideal landing spots for those guys. Hi, Dame. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you. I know you're out in the best ball rooms and you're doing some drafting. Who are the values? Who are standing up as values? Gary Davenport, something we had mentioned earlier. Miami doubled down, not just on Mostert and Wilson, but also Salvon Ahmed and Myles Gaskin. They kept the whole crew. Is there room for another piece? Where do we want to see those guys land? The Deontay Foreman range, the Damian Harris range, the Devin Singletary range. Yeah. John Bonneville saw something where Zeke has made the second most money of any running back. He got a really sweet guaranteed portion of his last contract, right? AP, Frank Gore played his entire life, couldn't keep up. I think, so Royal Slave mentions this, the Miami may draft a running back, a day 3 running back. I think that's true. I think, look, Brett Veach is the one who called this out, and Isaiah Pacheco kind of made it come true. I mean, you're going to see 7th round running backs who run for 1,000 yards, right? I think a lot of GMs feel like that. Royal would like Harris to stay in New England. Tampa Bay reportedly interested in Elliott. That's what that's what the reporting has been. Rick Stroud reported that for the Tampa Bay Times. So we'll see. Is that a limit? How limiting a factor is that for Rachaad White? Do we then have something similar to what we saw in Dallas with Ezekiel Elliott bringing the Thunder? And where is Leonard Fournette done? Have we seen enough of him? Going back to the Samaje Perine, that was per Rick Stroud. Yes, Gary. The Samaje Perine, a lot of talk that Joe Mixon was going to be a cap casualty, right? That they were ready to move on from him. Does that change this? Will they dig in the draft? Are they all in on Chris Evans? I mean, do they have other pieces that they're going to hang on to, or will they be adding a piece there? That's interesting, because that seemed to be, I know the guys at The Athletic were reporting it as kind of almost a foregone conclusion that Joe Mixon would be out of there. And I don't think any of them said that Samaje Perine was going to take over. But the fact that they let him move on first is interesting. And it's the same thing in Minnesota where, we'll see what happens with Madison and Cook. There's some talk that maybe Cook could be available. And it was mentioned earlier in the chat that Miami might have been sniffing around, but it didn't work out. So, boy, so much intrigue. I'm still kind of enthusiastically overjoyed by the Miles Sanders and David Montgomery landing spots. This is a great deal. The wide receiver landing spots. Let's move on to the Raiders real quick and kind of touch base on that. I know y'all are aware Jimmy Garoppolo is the starting quarterback. He'll have his press conference tomorrow. Jakobi Meyers added, which seemed okay, pretty good, works the middle of the field, a good route runner, capable of getting things done, career high 6 touchdowns, catches last year. Seems like a nice compliment for Davante Adams. Seems like he wouldn't cut into the workload for Darren Waller. Oh, wait, Darren Waller is now a New York Giant. So let me ask you this. Darren Waller, I started, just some fortuitous timing of best balls. I was at the point where I was looking at tight ends. I'm kind of interested in a tight end who's right now essentially, as things sit now, and it's going to change, but, you have to be the de facto wide receiver 1 for the New York Giants, right? Pretty good value for him at the moment. But Jimmy G, Jakobi Meyers joining forces there. Familiar with Josh McDaniel, obviously part of the deal. But what does this mean for Josh Jacobs? I mean, what does all this mean for any of them? Josh Jacobs had 340 carries last year. Is there any reason to believe they dial back on that they're going to become a pass-happy offense, that all of a sudden Hunter Henry's going to regain his value? I think it's going to be another heavy dose of Josh Jacobs to me. Not that you're not, not that Davante Adams doesn't deserve to be a first-round fantasy pick or early second round, wherever you can get him. But I think it is kind of interesting that Jimmy Garoppolo does not this seems like a lateral move at quarterback, right? I mean, Derek Carr, whatever you thought of him, was certainly capable of serving the needs of those wide receivers. I think Jimmy G is as well, as long as he's healthy. Jakobi Meyers is a pretty good curse of 370. Gary's throwing it out there. It was 340. He's going to be okay. Gary also saying Kareem Hunt would be interesting in Cincinnati. I think that's the piece that I'm looking for. Talk of him being in Denver, talk of him being of some interest, maybe even in Kansas City, where he came from when I had some troubles there and kind of got run off quickly. So be interesting to see where he goes and some of those top pieces available. I mean, the running back class is pretty thin. He's right up there, and a pass producer who seems capable as both a receiver and a runner. Waller could kill slot wide receiver production for the Giants, says Joe Herbert, a Giants fan. Dane wants to know what the Vikings are doing at running back. I think I'm kind of there too. I mean, are they ready and willing to move on from Dalvin Cook and ship him out and re-sign Alexander Madison? Are they going to No, they don't. Gary says receptions count in the curse of 370. I'm saying no. Carries only. Okay, maybe they do. What was the last year? I think he averaged 22.3 touches per game, just behind Derrick Henry, who apparently is immune to that. Gary, pretty much immune to the curse of 370. Derrick Henry, I think he is, maybe. But the Vikings, they're making some changes there. 393 touches. The curse spares no one. We'll see about that. I don't think the curse is going to keep Josh McDaniels from handing the hell. Look, if you thought last year going into the season was an ideal situation, we weren't sure, right? We're sitting there in July fretting about his workload in a Hall of Fame game, and were they ready to bail on him because they didn't pick up his fifth-year option? No, they treated him like a rental car and drove the wheels off him. I feel like he is just a slightly more expensive rental car this year, and they will once again run the wheels off him. And maybe the wheels fall off sooner, but he's held up pretty well. John Bonneville, as a Vikings fan, I wish I knew. Thought they were going to trade, cut Dalvin, and roll with Madison. That's what I thought, right? I thought that made the most sense. And it seems to be not the direction they're heading. And they've made some changes there as well. Brought in a very good blocking tight end in Josh Oliver, meaning Irv Smith is no longer in the picture. We'll see where he lands. Where's Mike Gesicki land? Somebody could use a receiving tight end. I mean, Mike McDaniels apparently can't, but somebody can. I'll be interested to see that. What about the possible trades that we've been hearing about? New England, Jerry Jeudy. It sounds like the Broncos are open to moving, whether it's Jeudy, Sutton, KJ Hamler, if anyone was interested, and DeAndre Hopkins are the big names. Where would we like to see them land? I know we've already talked about New England. Apparently, Bill Belichick has a nice eye on Jeudy, also on Odell Beckham Jr. We'll see where that goes. There are teams at the workouts. Look, Odell Beckham looked good in that workout. I don't know. I'm not a scout, but when a guy looks like that running around catching footballs with one hand, I was fairly impressed. Bijan Robinson in Minnesota. Like I've seen, it's a big deal. Talked to a lot of beat writers, kind of on a weekly basis on the Football Diehards radio program. By the way, special edition of that tomorrow, Thursday. We're sitting in the Guru Elite hours, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern time. It'll be me and Dempsey. And then we'll be back on Sunday afternoon, this week only, then back to our regular time on Saturdays. DeAndre Hopkins, best landing spot. Jerry Jeudy, best landing spot. Sutton, Hopkins. Where are the best landing spots for these guys? I don't know. Hopkins seems like anyone could use Hopkins. I know the Giants are a popular destination, and it does make sense. Now that they've invested some in Darren Waller, does it still make sense? By the way, Darren Waller has more 1,000-yard receiving seasons himself than all the Giants tight ends in the history of the franchise combined. They have one 1,000-yard receiving season from a tight end. Thank you, Mark Bavaro. D-Hop, best landing spot. Chiefs, Sutton, the Panthers. I think that I'd buy that. I think the Panthers are going to be in the market. The Chiefs is an interesting one. Here the Chiefs they're always one piece away from something, right? From greater success. I don't know. When you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, I think you can kind of play that field, right? And obviously moving on from JuJu, it sounds like Mecole Hardman will be out of the picture, so they'll have some needs there as well. So going into the season with Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, they have room. Joe Herbert, I think this strong tight end class could lead to more plays with 12 personnel on the field across the league. I know like Todd Monken coming in. Todd Monken at Georgia, I want to say, last year ran more 12 personnel than any other college team. I want to say it was like well over 50% of the time. Goes to Baltimore where the talent fits, right? You've got Mark Andrews, you've got Isaiah Likely and others. Charlie Kolar. No longer Josh Oliver, though. He's gone. He's in Minnesota. So interesting thought there. Tight end class not moving very fast. Hayden Hurst, the first guy off the list there, Waller wasn't on the list. Waller was surprised he got moved. How much better is the Giants offense going to be this year? Just as things stand now, just assuming there's a progression, right? Daniel Jones progresses, Saquon Barkley stands pat. There's got to expect some improvement in the receiving core, right? In the wideout room anyway. They kept Sterling Shepard. They kept Isaiah Hodgins. Need one more piece. How much better can this offense be? I'll be interested to see. Thielen, another free agent with the Chiefs. So I've seen a lot of talk. Thielen is visiting the Panthers. Buffalo has been mentioned, where they've been clearing up all kinds of cap room, right? Josh Allen restructured. Von Miller restructured. Stephon Diggs yesterday restructured. Could it be an Odell Beckham play? Could Thielen go play with his old buddy Diggs, right? I talked to a Buffalo beat writer, Sal Capaccio, for WGR radio there. He mentioned the Thielen play. Also asked him about the running backs, that seems to be the thing. Buffalo is like a running back away from being better. Like when the word first came out that maybe Derrick Henry was available for trade, you're thinking, does anyone think they're a running back away from a championship? I don't think that. I don't think any team probably thinks they're a running back away from a championship. Maybe Philadelphia, right? But then they went out and got Rashad Penny. Well, maybe Buffalo. Right? But apparently not. Not according to Sal Capaccio. he thinks they're, pretty well locked. They think James Cook is going to be a very good player. I know Matthew Berry wrote the same in his Scouting Combine Buzz article. So John Bonneville notes, it's funny how cyclical the league is. Teams start drafting smaller, faster defensive players, playing sub packages, and then all of a sudden offenses may be looking to get bigger and run better. We've seen this like all along. We've seen like went from the smaller receivers to the bigger receivers. Then you saw cornerbacks, a series of bigger cornerbacks. Then they went to the smaller shifty. I mean, it does kind of have those ebbs and flows to it. And I think that's kind of the one side gets ahead and another side does, counteracts it. And then, every year it's these people don't take any time off. Defensive coordinators are watching film. The scouts are trying to look for players. Joe thinks the Bills' offensive philosophy would waste Henry. I think that's basically the point that Sal made, is the Bills are never going to be big spenders. And that's the thing about Henry too, is, I mean, if you think you're a running back away from a title, do you give up a bunch of something you already have, whether it's draft capital or players, and then have to pay that guy, and that's going to get you the title? I don't know if teams will think that. Maybe the Chiefs could use Derrick Henry. We'll see about that. This time of year is great. Love this. Penny's deal, John Bonneville mentioned, is so small, I think they could be in the draft market for running back. I think that's true as well. I'm not sold on the Penny to Philadelphia. I'm sold on Montgomery to Detroit and Sanders to Carolina, though. I'm thinking that seems like a winning proposition there. I could definitely see that playing out. Miles Sanders finally gets the usage. How many times have I worn out Eagles beat writers with the same question? Why don't the Eagles like Miles Sanders as much as the rest of us? And the answer was they do, but clearly they didn't. I mean, last year, ran for 1,000 yards. Still, there were times when he vanished, wasn't on the field in big situations. I keep thinking back to the Chicago game last year. I want to say about week 15 or so. And I mean, at that time, Sanders was a 1,000-yard rusher. The team came out and could have run the ball. The Bears were horrible at stopping the run, and we didn't see Miles Sanders wasn't on the field until the middle of the second quarter of that game. Royal Slate, Philly isn't done at running back. I would agree with that. I think that's true. New prediction from John Bonneville: Madison to Bills on the cheap. If the Vikings keep Dalvin, I have convinced him. It's going to have to be cheap. Whoever it is, whatever the Bills do, it's going to be on the cheap. Deonta Foreman, he'd probably be cheap, right? Maybe it's Devin Singletary. That was Sal's call, was maybe they just retained Singletary. They signed him at a friendly deal to them, and that they think he's a good play. Joe Herbert thinking that Hunt would be a great fit for the Bills or the Bengals. That's interesting. I think Kareem Hunt you could make fit anywhere, right? I think anyone could use Kareem Hunt. I think he's been vastly underused. By the way, Dearness Johnson, not a lot to be back there if you're they seem to be all in on Jerome Ford behind Nick Chubb. But also something to remember is, we'll see how this offense in Cleveland evolves. I don't know what you guys think as well. Put it down in the comments. But I think, when you pay your quarterback a guaranteed $230 million, you're probably going to make greater use of him than you did last year. I know Kevin Stefanski's kind of been run first, but I think that's going to shift. I think we're going to see it, and I think we saw it late in the season. Damian Harris to the Bills. Damian Harris seems like a cheap play. Hello, Mr. Scampers. I'm glad to see you. Thanks for making it. I think that's an interesting one. The Damian Harris. There's a handful of these free agent running backs who seem like they would be very serviceable. And since it's running back, if they land in the right place, they could make some hay. And so as you're out there drafting, I mentioned this in my best balls. I was going to go in and I was going to try to go against my very nature as a longtime fantasy player who started playing in the 80s. Running backs were it. That's how you won leagues. I don't think that's how you win things anymore. So I've been making a concerted effort to hold off on running backs, to load up on those high-end wide receivers and take my chances at running back a little later. And I thought that would yield me guys like maybe Bijan Robinson would be valued. Not so much. That's not happening. But waiting until later, and even Tony Pollard is the 17th. Ramondre Stevenson, as Royal Slade mentioned before, at 16. Tony Pollard at 17. Aaron Jones at 19. I don't think is a bad play. Cam Akers at running back 20. Look what Cam Akers did down the stretch last year, playing behind a, decimated would be an understatement, right? Behind that offensive line that couldn't do anything in an offense that wasn't threatening opposing defenses down the field. Played really well. Cam Akers might be a guy that maybe they'll do something in the draft, but I think we've seen maybe Kyron Williams is the guy. Didn't see much signs of that last year. JB Frost wants to know who places Samaje Perine opposite or behind Joe Mixon. And I think, Chris Evans seems like next man up, but we'll see. Maybe they find another piece. Maybe they draft somebody. Is Stefanski on the hot seat in 2023? Gary Davenport does not want to talk about the Cleveland Browns, but I would like to hear his view. I think it's going to be pass heavier, and I think that's one of the reasons Stefanski being on the hot seat, at least a little bit, he's got to be, right? I don't know how patient the Haslams are. I'm not sure they're going to be all that patient when you're out there, when you're willing to irritate the entire NFL ownership hierarchy by giving a fully guaranteed contract to Deshaun Watson. I don't think you're worried about moving on from coaches. So I don't know if he's on the hot seat going into the season, but he could well end up there if they don't have some success. And I think you saw it late last season. What was the game where they really went pass heavy? I want to say Nick Chubb had like 12 carries in the game. Help me out there if you remember. I'm sure Gary remembers this. He lived it all as a Browns fan. But anyway, I think I was taking that as a sign that maybe we're going to see a little bit of an evolution of this offense. They have some pieces. Maybe they'll be out there drafting a little more speed at wide receiver. If Watson stinks, he's likely done. That is true. And I think it's fair, we looked at Watson last year, and when he first came out, it wasn't great, but I thought he started showing signs, right? But prior to all the issues, he was as good as, he was a top 5 quarterback, a top 5 fantasy quarterback, right? Last time he played a full season, he threw for 5,000 yards. Amari Cooper is a guy that I thought, is still a pretty good value this year. Maybe he should be going higher. Donovan Peoples-Jones, kind of almost a free square play. Going higher than that, but still a pretty good value. So I'm interested to see what those Cleveland Browns can do and what the offense looks like. Need to upgrade the wide receiver too. I think that's true. I think that's, I've seen people predicting that will be the case. So that's great stuff. Baker's last game as a Brown, injured, and they threw it 27,000 times. Baker Mayfield to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How exciting! What is the Tampa Bay? What are we making of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers receiving corps? Because I talk about some of these value plays. I don't know that I'm seeing the discount I want to see on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Mike Evans, well, I guess it is a bit of a discount. Let's see. Mike Evans, wide receiver 22. That's pretty good discount. Chris Godwin, wide receiver 25. Can they return that value with Baker Mayfield as their trigger man or Kyle Trask? Wow. David Bell, the rookie last year, John Bonneville wants to know. We didn't really see much of him last year. Got a little beat up. I think John is being very generous when he says he's not a great separator, but he is great at contested catches. I think that is totally true. Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay, can he get the most? Can Mike Evans hit that 1,000-yard mark? It'll be interesting. I see these guys and I find myself swerving around them. How are you all feeling when you see Mike Evans in the draft room, like at the top of the queue as you go in? And they're going, I don't think I do have shares of Evans. Baker, Joe Herbert's calling Baker a sleeper this season. Played with some fire late last season. Look, he came up big in kind of a tough circumstance. But I almost think that's one of those cases where, we see players kind of catch that lightning in a jar kind of thing, just that brief moment. Gesicki to the Bucks makes perfect sense. They have a need there. Gesicki's got to go somewhere, right? Somewhere where they use tight ends, like as their slot receiver. That would be great. Chaos playtime. Packers get a first for Rodgers, trade Jordan Love, and 2 firsts for Lamar. Woo! Scampers taking it next level. Look, everything's, some of the craziest things turn out to maybe not be that crazy. We'll see. I wonder if, tell me what you guys think. I wonder if how surprised will we be if Lamar Jackson doesn't get an offer? If nobody even bothers? I mean, somebody's got to bother. Someone's got to say, I'll give it a shot, right? But what if they don't? What if he's just stuck? Again, that's my concern. So I'm still like of the mind that Lamar Jackson is 90% sure, 80 to 90. I'll take it down to 80, 90% sure Lamar Jackson remains a Baltimore Raven. The question then is, how unhappy is he as a Baltimore Raven? They changed coordinators. They've been trying to get deals done with him. It hasn't worked out. I don't know. Is he going to be there to learn the new offense? Todd Monken kind of already downplaying the notion that he needs to be there. Look, it's football. He can pull it off. Oh, well, interesting stuff. I'm going to get out here. Give me any final questions. Let's run through those. I'll go out and write a Miles Sanders update. Get some things going. Collusion. Is it collusion, though? So, I think collusion's an interesting word, right? I mean, is it possible that independently every other owner not named Jimmy Haslam thinks that it's a bad idea to give somebody a fully guaranteed contract? Is that collusion? If they're not sitting down in the same room making blood oaths and, is it collusion if they all reach the same conclusion that we don't want to have to pay somebody guaranteed a fully, we don't want to cross the Rubicon on that. Like, okay, Haslam did it, and he's an idiot. We're not going to be that stupid. I mean, I get the notion behind it, but I don't know if that's like real collusion. If they're not all sitting there talking amongst themselves. Wherever Lamar lands, he has to take Andrews with him. I will agree with that. Colts should look at Lamar. I think Jim Irsay is one of the owners who would look at him. I think that's true. I think, after the last 5 years, they've probably figured out that it's probably pretty good, not to keep recycling. But, is Lamar, does he, there are questions about Lamar. I think he's a great player. I just feel like if you're in that situation where you don't want to guarantee, Daniel Snyder shouldn't care because he's not going to be owning the team. Gary Davenport makes a great point. And just to spite whoever takes over that team and the other owners who are running him out of the league, right? They already hate him and he hates them too. And what a great going away gift that would be for his friend Jeff Bezos to leave him a huge bill for Lamar Jackson. We'll see what happens. I still think Baltimore is waiting to see what the offers are, and then they'll match them. I think they've been trying to get a deal done and just haven't been able to because maybe the expectations or the demands or requirements that Lamar Jackson put out there are something they feel is unrealistic, and that he'll get this dose of reality from his negotiations with other teams. We'll find that out. Anyway, I mentioned tomorrow, Thursday afternoon, you can hear the football diehards. We'll be filling in Jeff Mann's time slot from 4 to 6. We'll be on Sunday. I should check that time. The live stream will be back Friday night this week. Emo's traveling this weekend, so I'll be doing this Friday night. I'll double check the Sunday show here because, what is it, week of 3? Just double checking to know the right time because it's hard for me to figure these things out. I think we're on from 4 to 6 on Sunday this week. But anyway, I'll give you that information Friday night. Meanwhile, go hit the Football Diehards website where you'll find all kinds of cool stuff, including John Lov's latest rookie assessments. You've got the quarterbacks, first round of quarterbacks, the tight ends, the wide receivers and running backs, and he will be bringing more of those. His running backs and wide receivers part 2s will be coming, so check that out. Go to the site. If you haven't subscribed to the site, subscribe to the site. It's footballdiehards.com. Use the promo code diehards and get a 15% discount on everything you're buying. We'll be getting work on some magazines here soon. I know Gary Davenport has a list of articles that he's ready to write up, and we'll get with him on that. Looking forward to that as always. Again, Friday night, I'll be back. We haven't set an official time, but assume it's going to be around 7 p.m., about this time on Friday evening. I'm sure none of you have any great plans during that time, and there'll be more signings, and we'll have things going on. And we'll dig a little deeper into the Miles Sanders and David Montgomerys of the world and take all your questions and further discuss all the happenings in the NFL. Might even talk about Aaron Rodgers. Who knows? He's very popular in very small circles. Not amongst Adam Schefter's, though. Yes, John does a great job of rookies. And all right, everybody. So thanks a lot. We'll see you then on Friday night. Catch you tomorrow on the Football Diehards radio program if you are so inclined.